Thank you very much. The next item of business is a statement by Ivan Mckee on Scotland's vision for trade. The Minister will take questions at the end of his statement, and so there should be no interventions or interruptions. And I call on Ivan Mckee.
Philosopher Edmund Burke once said that free trade is not based on utility but on justice. And that concept and belief sits at the heart of Scotland's vision for trade, which I'm pleased to be publishing today. A vision that shows how trade can advance Scotland's economic, social and environmental aims, a vision that sets out our principles for the type of trading relationships we want Scotland to have now and in the future. Today's publication is timely because it comes across during an unprecedented period of disruption and uncertainty. The pandemic continues to impact on our health and well-being, our businesses and the economy. At the same time, the decision to take Scotland out of the world's largest single market and customs union will be hugely damaging for our country and our economy. In this challenging context, trade is all the more important as a means to deliver sustainable, inclusive growth and contribute to a well-being economy. Trade drives improvements in living standards and generates higher incomes for workers. Scotland will continue to support free and fair trade that works for all while standing against protectionism. Doing so is absolutely compatible with and fundamental to balancing our economic, social and environmental aims and ambitions. Decisions on trade may create tensions, but guided by our principles, we will always aim to strike this balance. Scotland's vision for trade sets out a principled approach to navigate the complexity of the trading environment now and in the future. Not just the challenges of today, the significant shocks of Brexit and COVID, but also likely and foreseeable trends and developments. Presiding Officer, the trade-related decisions we take will have important and far-reaching implications for current and future generations. It's only right that we take a considered approach to these decisions, one that is founded on principles and values that reflect the country we want to be and the trading relationships we want to have. At its heart, a set of 5 principles, which will be our constant guide in our future decisions on international trade. Inclusive growth, well-being, sustainability, net zero and good governance. It is, of course, Presiding Officer, businesses that trade, but to avoid them doing so in a damaging vacuum, the Scottish Government believes it is important to set the tone to encourage value-based economic development at home and elsewhere. And actions speak louder than words. That is why in the vision we apply these 5 principles to today's biggest trading issues facing our economy, our people and the planet. We also set out the levers the Scottish Government can use to direct, manage and shape international trade flows and their impacts, but there are also levers that are currently reserved to the UK Government. While the Citizens' Assembly of Scotland has strongly called for the Scottish Government and Parliament to seek greater powers to negotiate our own trade relations, we must currently press for Scotland's interests to be properly identified, protected and enhanced in the UK's trade negotiations. This Parliament will know that the Scottish Government has consistently made a powerful case for a formal and comprehensive role for devolved governments in all stages of the development of future UK trade arrangements. Despite the obvious strength of our case, we have been frustrated by the failure of the UK Government to meaningfully engage with us or indeed any of the devolved governments. The UK Government has chosen to focus so far on a series of ad hoc free trade agreements to reach its trade goals. However, to conduct a consistent, coherent and successful trade policy, a broader range of tools is needed. Our vision for trade also sets out the Scottish Government's asks of the UK Government, using our vision to influence the approach it takes in developing trade agreements with other countries and blocs. Presiding Officer, we will seek to apply the 5 trade principles in our vision to today's biggest trade challenges, Scotland's economy, our people and the planet. We want Scotland's economy to grow and to be globally competitive, entrepreneurial, inclusive and sustainable. To achieve this, we will work to influence the trading environment to maximise our competitive advantage and improve market access for our businesses in goods and services. We will do this in a coherent and strategic way by supporting traders to navigate preferential trade terms and free trade agreements, and in doing so drive up the utilisation of such agreements. But also, more importantly, we will seek to improve the trading environment for Scottish businesses and sectors which share our values by targeting access barriers beyond free trade agreements. We will also support business to engage with the W2 architecture to reduce unnecessary technical barriers, trade for goods, and seek mutual recognition agreements for key sectors. For services, barriers on mobility, establishment and qualification need to be addressed. However, in taking advantage of the opportunities from trade for our economy, we must constantly seek the right balance between competing priorities in our trade decisions. Some examples include drawing advantages for Scotland from the growth of digital trade, whilst also balancing this with the importance of data protection and establishing Scotland as an ethical digital nation. Being part of global value chains while balancing this with supporting our local businesses and seeking opportunities for regulatory cooperation with others while regulating where we have the power to do so in the public interest. The EU is our closest and largest international export market, and EU trade continues to be our priority, and we will not lose sight of that in the months and years ahead. The UK's trade and cooperation agreement with the EU is a bad deal for Scotland, so we ask the UK Government to prioritise building on it in a way which upholds high standards, for example through mutual recognition agreements for key sectors. Secondly, for Scotland's people, we will use our trade principles to increase well-being and opportunity through trade while reducing inequality. International trade has contributed to our rapid increase in growth and living standards globally. However, the benefits of trade have not reached everyone. There are clear winners and losers. Where we are committed to take advantage of the benefits that trade liberalisation can bring, we recognise that globalisation and trade bring challenges that must be managed and addressed. We need to understand better the differential impacts of trade across our society, particularly to advance our fair work agenda. Championing Scotland's trade interests does not prevent us from considering how the impacts of trade are experienced by different people in different sectors and across different geographies. This means identifying and engaging with all sectors, communities and individuals impacted by economic shifts that result from global developments or from trade decisions, and who are necessary working to ensure just transitions to the sectors and technologies of the future. We can do this by ensuring our labour market, education, skills and regional development policies consider trade impacts. It also means applying our principles to trade decisions in a way that support fair work and wellbeing. My recent announcement of a new model of Scottish green ports focused on inclusive growth, fair work practices and delivering a net zero economy is an example of this. The voices of consumers are often excluded from trade policy, and so we will protect, serve and empower them. We will also ensure our policies on trade always support and seek to protect our public services. The Presiding Officer of this Government remains absolutely committed to protecting our NHS from predatory and harmful trade agreements, and we will continue to insist the UK Government makes this a red line in any trade negotiations. Finally, Presiding Officer, our trade principles aim to have a wider global impact that will benefit our planet. We are determined for Scotland to be a good global citizen, so our approach to trade must contribute to addressing global challenges, such as the climate emergency and global inequality. We will use trade as a lever to drive progress towards our climate change targets and improve our international environmental impact. An example of this is our commitment to ending all overseas trade support and promotion activities solely focused on fossil fuel goods and services by the time of the COP26. Scotland's trade support will be provided to businesses which align with our climate priorities. We will also use this vision for trade to set out the sort of trading partners we want as a government. Collaborative, inclusive and innovative. To do so, we will promote our trade principles internationally and play an active and visible role on the global stage on issues that matter to Scotland. We support strong global governance, provide collective solutions to transnational challenges with the rules-based system of the WTO as a core part of this, driving up standards for international cooperation. We want to build global trade relationships with like-minded countries, organisations and businesses, finding common cause based on our trade principles. For example, through encouraging UK participation in the Agreement on Climate Change, Trade and Sustainability Group at the WTO. We will respect international law, support human rights and seek to build international relationships on trade that support developing nations and address global inequality. We will expect the same of the UK Government. We call on Westminster to make compliance with fundamental human rights in the Paris Agreement absolute red lines for the initiation of FTA negotiations. Presiding Officer, by publishing Scotland's vision for trade, we are setting out our stall for the future, openly, transparently and unapologetically setting high standards for ourselves and for others. We intend to use our trade vision as a working document to test future trade-related policies, to monitor its effectiveness through a set of indicators and to publish an annual trade policy review, setting out how we have tackled trade-related challenges in line with the principles and approach set out in this vision. We are clear about the kind of country we want to be, with strong principles to guide how we do businesses around the world, so that people, businesses and other governments know who we are and what we represent as a nation. We want Scotland to be a successful trading nation, but we want to be known as much as for how we trade as what we trade. Our economy, our people and the planet require it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And the Minister will now take questions on the issues raised in his statement, and I intend to allow around 20 minutes for questions, after which we will move on to the next item of business. It would be helpful if members who wish to ask a question were to press the request to speak buttons now, and I call Maurice Golden.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer, and I thank the Minister for advance sight of his statement. I very much welcome the Minister's commitment to inclusive growth, well-being and reaching net zero. The Scottish Conservatives believe we can achieve all those things whilst protecting jobs and ensuring no community is left behind. Reading between the lines in the Minister's statement, though, it seems he does not agree. He states that this SNP government will end all overseas trade support and promotional activity for industries based on fossil fuels before the end of the year. These words alone will cause uncertainty for those looking to invest in Scotland's oil and gas sector and for those companies based in Scotland who export oil and gas related all over the world. The SNP will be delivering a hammer blow to the North East and wider Scotland with this approach. Will the Minister clarify his comments and explain exactly what the impact of this commitment will be for North Sea oil and gas?
Minister.
A very strange question from Maurice Golden. If he's serious about net zero, then he needs to be serious about the transition. And it's quite clear that the Conservatives, based on that statement, clearly aren't. We made a commitment in our programme for government, I think 2 years ago, that we would end trade support for trade missions focused solely on fossil fuels, and we've now clarified the position on that. That will indeed happen by the time COP26 in Glasgow later this year. What that means is that businesses that are focused solely on fossil fuels, goods and services exports will not be supported by our overseas development agencies. We are working through with the sector to understand, to work with them to clarify any areas that may be clarified around the edges of that statement, but that's clear. And I'd just like him to reflect. I was in Boston before COVID with a trade mission of Scottish businesses, very successful Scottish businesses, mostly from the north east of Scotland, all of whom had started life in the oil and gas sector, all of whom were transitioning extremely successfully into the renewable sector, and we were there to sell that Scottish technology and expertise to businesses in the US that wanted to establish offshore wind renewables industries. So Scotland has great strengths in this area. The transition is real. We're moving forward on it. The oil companies understand it. The supply chain in that sector understands it. It's a shame that the Scottish Conservatives clearly don't understand it, and their commitment to low carbon and net zero is clearly a bit of a charade.
I call Alex Rowley.
Officer, the most recent targets to grow international exports by 50% between 2010 and 2017 were missed. Then 2 years ago, the Scottish Government published another strategy, a trading nation. That strategy included £20 million of funding over 3 years. And I asked the Minister how much of that funding has been spent to date, and does the Government intend to increase that funding in light of the pandemic? And I note that there is no mention of funding in his statement today. Will this latest strategy be funded, or is it just wishful thinking?
To be very clear, this is a vision statement, and I've made very clear what this will do is allow us to assess trade-related decisions that we need to make in the real world to navigate the complexities of the global trade environment. So what it allows us to do is to take policy positions on what requires to be done. We have set out in very great detail, and the member can read through this at his leisure in the 90-odd pages of the document, what those 11 global challenges are and how we will use our levers at our control to make policy decisions on how we address and tackle those. This isn't a policy statement about how we will increase exports. That is important. That is tackled by a trading nation, as he rightly identifies. So this is about our vision, it's about our policy statement, it's about how we address those very complicated balances often in the global trading environment and how we work with others to deliver on that. And in terms of the money that's been spent, of course we have that commitment to grow our exports. The very substantial and very well received a Trading Nation document delivers on that for us. Clearly COVID has had an impact on that, and clearly the very hard Brexit that the UK government has championed has had a detrimental impact on that, but we remain committed as ever. I meet with officials monthly to drive forward the more than 100 actions in a trading nation, and we're committed to delivering on that and making sure that Scotland's exports continue to grow despite the challenges that we face.
I call Annabel Ewing to be followed by Graham Simpson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It is, of course, vital that Scotland's vision for trade has fair work at its heart. Can the Minister therefore provide any further detail as to how specifically the Scottish Government will promote key fair work principles as far as trade is concerned? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. Fair work is absolutely central to our economic policies and rightly to our approach to trade, and promoting fair work and high labour standards at home and abroad is absolutely central to that. We oppose trading partners undercutting production costs to gain unfair advantages by failing to enforce labour standards and worker protection. And give some examples of that. Last week I unveiled our Scottish model of green ports to create an exemplar for the use of fair work practices, setting a high bar for businesses that want to work with the Scottish Government to promote trade and regional development across Scotland. And the approach we take to skills to make sure that we are equipping individuals to be able to make the transition to sectors that are growing as a consequence of shifts in global trade, and many, many other examples. But fair work, as a member rightly identifies, central to our approach, both to economic development and to our international trading relationships.
Call Graham Simpson to be followed by Willie Coffey.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I welcome the statement in the accompanying document on page 35, where the Scottish Government accepts the UK Government has a global influence which could create an open trading landscape for Scottish businesses. But can I ask the Minister about free ports, because that's also mentioned in this document. I had a go at getting an answer on this one last week, but failed. Can the Minister say how many free ports he anticipates opening in Scotland, and how far behind will we be in time terms to free ports opening in England?
Minister.
Yeah, I think it's been very clear on this. The UK Government has identified a model that calls for 10 ports across the UK. The Scottish Green Port model has made sure that anything that happens in Scotland complies to our very high standards of fair work practices and our tradition to net zero. We are in discussions with the UK Government at the moment. I would be happy for it to be more than one port, more than one green port in Scotland, but that is a decision that we need to discuss with the UK Government, and I continue to do so. Depending on the success of that model, there would be scope to roll it out further to support regional economic development across Scotland to those high standards.
Thank you very much. Willie
Sorry, could I just comment on the timing issue? Very conscious of the timing issue, an issue I discussed again on Monday with more than 60 representatives of ports and businesses from across Scotland. We only found out about the UK Government's proposals in the middle of November, and we've moved very, very fast to be where we're at today. In March, we will be releasing our bid prospectus with a 3-month opportunity for businesses to apply for green port status, and we will follow up on that as quickly as we can to move forward with this agenda in that time frame.
Thank you very much. Willie Coffey to be followed by Sarah Boyack.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. We've increasingly focused on building our reputation and relationships globally around key products that represent our strengths and our values, not least our food and drink industry, but we've also seen how fragile global trade can be. Can I ask the Minister how he sees this vision for trade helping to further promote Scotland the brand and create more resilience in our relationships internationally and within Scotland too, of course?
Minister.
Yeah, thank you. We see great coherence between exactly that, promoting those values, a values-based approach to trade, and Scottish products which are built on high provenance, particularly in our food and drink sector, and those premium goods and services really chime well with that approach. We think that this trade vision sets a clear signal to international trading partners that Scotland is serious about this, and we're very focused on Scotland the brand, on strengthening that brand, its recognition with high value products and services, and those values that very much align with it. So we see this not only as an opportunity to make a statement about values, but very much as an opportunity to support Scottish businesses to trade more internationally.
Sarah Boyack, to be followed by Willie Rennie.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Minister, small businesses are facing extraordinary times. The continued restrictions are risking some businesses going to the wall, and with the added pressure of the transition out of the EU, it's critical that the Scottish Government provides support to SMEs to enhance exports and help our economy recover. So can the Minister outline how he intends to provide practical help for small businesses in order to boost exports?
Minister.
Well, the trade vision, of course, is setting out our vision for how we trade. It doesn't address specifically support for businesses. That is done through Trade the Nation and the ongoing work of our enterprise agencies and the ongoing work of the Scottish Government. But remember, we're very clear the positions we have taken to pressure the UK Government to deal with the absolutely disgraceful mess that they've made of the Brexit situation. Huge difficulties that's had, for example, in our seafood exporters. The pressure that my colleague, Mr Fergus Ewan, has applied on the UK Government has led to support from UK Government for that sector. And the work that we continue to do through SDI, through Scottish Enterprise to support export businesses in these difficult times, particularly SMEs that are an absolute core focus of the work that we're taking forward through our Trade the Nation. As I said, I meet with officials on a very regular basis to push forward the more than 100 actions that we've outlined to deliver that, despite the restrictions put in place by Brexit and the difficulties of the current pandemic. That remains an absolute focus to increase Scotland's exports, and particularly for our very successful SMEs. And I take part in trade missions, virtual trade missions, of course, now on a very, very regular basis, engaging with Scottish SMEs and international partners. In fact, I had one this very morning to support Scottish trade with France.
Willie Rennie, to be followed by Patrick Harvey.
In the past, the Scottish Government has sought to promote trade deals with places like Qatar, as well as the infamous fake deal with the Chinese railway company. Both had suspect connections with human rights abuses. Would the principles of human rights and inclusive growth that the Minister has just set out have halted those initiatives by Scottish ministers from just a few years ago?
Minister.
I think the vision is very clear, and I think that we've addressed those important issues we've put on paper in a very substantial document. I hope the member will agree what those issues are. We've outlined and we've identified the levers that we have to be able to influence and control where we can, and I think that any deal that came forward now would be assessed on the basis of the values that are addressed in this document. So we make no secret some of these challenges can be difficult to assess, but we're very, very clear now going forward. That's what the vision is there for, is to address particularly those specific examples where there may be issues that need to be considered. And as I've said very clearly in my statement and in the document, we will be producing openly and transparently an annual assessment going forward of how we have addressed those trade challenges with regards to the principles that are in this document, and I hope that the member would welcome that.
Patrick Harvey, to be followed by Rona Mckee.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the advance side of the statement, which includes some fairly predictable capitalist assumptions like trade drives improvements in living standards and generates higher incomes for workers. It can do, or it can do the opposite. But the statement does at least begin to put some principles into debate on trade, such as the first indication that the government might be willing to withdraw political support from the lethal fossil fuel industry. Will the Scottish Government act in accordance with the principles of those who voted against, at Westminster, who voted against trade agreements with countries that perpetrate genocide? Will we ensure that we're not seeking advantage through such trade deals which are signed in defiance of those principles? And can the Minister identify areas where he'd like to see less trade, such as the eradication of the arms trade, as well as those areas where he wants to see more? Minister.
Yeah, there's a few points in there. I mean, on the genocide, I think that Patrick Harvey's also the UK government's trade bill and SNP members were quite clear in the position we took that there should be the UK government shouldn't be taking forward trade deals with regimes that are guilty of genocide, and we're absolutely clear on that. In terms of arms, it's quite clear also Scottish enterprise and enterprise agencies don't support supporting businesses that manufacture munitions in Scotland, and anything that is input, any support there is very, very clearly to support diversification away from arms industry into other. Members laughing, but it's absolutely true. And if he looks at the reality of that, that's exactly what's happened. And I don't know why he's got a problem with us creating jobs in sectors that aren't related to the arms industry, because that's exactly what we're doing. And on the final point, I always find it quite bizarre when Patrick Harvey and others come on here and champion protectionism and against free trade and this kind of Trump-like approach to international relations. Free trade is good. It opens up windows, it increases the ability for people and societies to generate wealth as a consequence. That is the reality of it. And a narrow-minded protectionist approach to that does nobody any good, that approach that Patrick takes. We are very, very clear, and have articulated it very clearly, of one of the key principles. There are, of course, winners and there are losers. We understand that very clearly, and that's central to this vision is how we tackle that, how we work with that to make sure that through just transition processes that this government has transitioned, particularly in the energy sector and elsewhere, that we work to make sure that those societies, those individuals in those parts of Scotland that are at risk of suffering as a consequence of trade that does drive up living standards overall are supported to manage through those transitions and to minimise its impact and support them to take advantage of the opportunities that trade does open up.
Can I ask for succinct questions and answers, please, to get other questioners in? I'll call Rona Mckee to be followed by Jamie Halcrow-Johnson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The UK Government's Brexit deal has thrown up considerable barriers to trade with the EU, and all against the will of Scottish voters. Can the Minister confirm that Scotland's trading strategy will continue to develop and grow Scotland's strong trading relationship with the EU?
Minister.
Absolutely. The member is correct. The UK's deal with the EU is a bad deal for Scotland, and that will become more apparent over time as we move forward. And the Scottish Government remains committed to strengthening where we can our relationship with our partners in Europe and with the EU, and making sure that working with those like-minded countries through whatever channels we have available to help strengthen good governance across the global trading environment.
Jamie Halcrow-Johnson to be followed by John Mason.
While the Minister claims the EU is our closest and largest international export market, it's the rest of the UK which is Scotland's largest market for trade and the destination for more than 60% of our exports. So why do Mr Mckee and the SNP continue to push for breaking up the UK, something which would put up barriers with that largest market, risking jobs and livelihoods? And will he accept that leaving the UK single market would be hugely damaging for our country and our economy?
Minister.
The people of Scotland, as we've seen and continue to see, are increasingly recognising in ever greater numbers that Scotland's position is best served being outside of the UK. They look at other international countries of Scotland's size, of far less natural resources than us, that have been much, much more successful in the building fairer and wealthier societies as a consequence of having full levers at their disposal to be able to maximise the benefits of their economy and the resources to the people and societies that they have. And they recognise that Scotland's future lies in that direction. And this trade vision identifies the levers that Scotland has to pull to be able to influence trade agreements, and it also identifies the levers that the UK has and what we seek to do to influence the UK as a consequence. But we all look forward to the day when all of those levers will be controlled by a Scottish Government sitting in Edinburgh, elected by the people of Scotland as an independent country.
John Mason to be followed by Stuart McMillan.
Thank you. Can the Minister say how Scottish Development International and the enterprise agencies fit into the vision?
Minister.
Yeah, there's a key role there because a lot of this is about understanding the reality of what's happening on the ground, and SDI's network globally is extremely useful for feeding back data, understanding market access barriers, understanding opportunities, how we go about to tackle those, understanding what's happening on the ground, gathering that information helps us to inform a more rounded picture of the global trading environment, how we can seek to influence it, how we can support businesses to export in that environment, and what information helps us to make more clear judgments on trade-related decisions in line with the principles articulated in this vision.
Thank you very much. And the final question on this statement from Stuart McMillan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We need to work to ensure that a green recovery from the coronavirus crisis takes place, and can the Minister therefore provide any further information as to how Scotland's trading strategy will actually contribute towards this?
Minister.
Yeah, absolutely. The challenges we face at the moment are significant. We've written the vision document very clearly to be, as we've said, for now and for the future. So it establishes those principles that we'll reflect back on year after year as we navigate our way through complex international trading situations, both in the current constitutional situation and in the future, and it's built to be timeless for that. So as we come out of the pandemic, we believe that very much gives us the springboard to be able to develop our policies to take advantage of them, but to do so in a way that's hugely it has the centrality of this vision and the principles that espouses absolutely at its heart.
Thank you very much, and I'm very grateful to the Minister and colleagues. We will suspend very briefly in order to allow all of the necessary participants in the next debate to take their places. Please suggest to colleagues that you do not go away or log off in any way whatsoever. We'll suspend briefly and then move on to the next item of business. Thank you very much.